All right. All right. Hey, everybody. We're live again, live coding with the Dagger team. Excited today to do a little different time of day. And we've got some of the usual crew, and Vikram was able to join us today, which is awesome. Hey, Vikram. How's it going?
Hey.
And we got Kyle and Jason, who you probably saw last time. And I'm Jeremy. Today, we're going to have Jason do some driving, and the rest of us are going to backseat drive with Jason. But Jason,
it's
what are you
favorite.
going to? Yeah, it's your favorite. Totally everyone's favorite. What are we going to work on today?
Yeah, so let's get my browser up. So we have a fast API sample app that we're just going to kind of walk through daggerizing, if you will. So to be completely honest, I've only seen this a little bit. I'm familiar with fast API, but I haven't actually done it. So this will kind of be like a fun experience to go through together. So I've already cloned it and have it kind of checked out and set up here. And there's no kind of Dagger information here. So we're going to start from scratch.
Nice.
So
Nice.
with
I can
that,
I can jump in and add some context for the app since this is my monster basically.
yeah, let's do it.
That's cool.
So it's a very simple REST API written with Fast API. If you click on the models.py, that kind of explains all of it. It's just a simple thing which lets you add books to a database, and so it's got a book model which has an ID, a title, and an author. And if you go to the routers, I think you can see the REST API methods. Yeah, so there's a post, you can add a book, get a list of books, modify it, delete it, etc. It's very simple, um, HTTP methods. But the interesting thing about it is that there's also a bunch of tests, and we're going to see, we're going to try and diagramize and run those tests. Yeah, so there's some sample data at the top, and then a whole bunch of tests which are going to push data in, pull data out, modify it, and so on. And all of these need actually a database as well to be running. So we'll have to create an ephemeral service which we can run these tests against.
Awesome.
Nice. So is Fast API basically a REST API framework for Python?
Yeah, I'm not a Python expert, but when I was looking for what's the quickest way to build a REST API Python, this was, I think, the first thing that popped up. It's pretty good. I mean, I didn't play a lot with it, but it's pretty nice. So yeah, I think it is the standard way to use, to create these kind of APIs.
Nice.
So should I install any dependencies, or we're just going to go straight to Dagger?
I think we can do it straight in Dagger, right?
Okay.
I mean, unless you want to, if you have Python, you want to kind of install and run the tests, but then we need a Postgres DB and all as well to run the tests. So
Yeah, well, maybe just go straight into putting in Dagger. Does that sound good?
yeah, sounds good. Let's go.
All right. So last live stream we did Python for the SDK, and we can choose something else if someone has any votes there.
Wait. So we're gonna do Fast API, but not do Python.
Yeah. It doesn't matter to me. We could do whichever one people want. So I do think it's funny to do one language and do another one in the actual Dagger code. But
is this something if there are people on the stream, do we want them to vote? Which language should we use?
Oh yeah, let me see.
They're all gonna vote for Java.
Oh no.
Okay.
This was a bad idea.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think you could do another language, but
yeah, I mean, you're gonna watch me because I'm using Zed and the Python. It gets weird and doesn't like to autocomplete unless you restart it. So I can definitely
we should do that then. We should definitely do that. Let's
okay,
just do
well,
Python. Let's stick it. This could be number 2 in our Python series. This would be like, because nice. I mean, the Fast API people will be like, you guys are asking about what Fast API is. I know it is like, obviously like the famous, like the thing, like it's like legendary. So not that I have too much experience with it, but I know it's legendary. That much I know.
All right. Well, let's so let's Dagger init a new project, and we're gonna use the Python SDK. Let's see, a second. And I'm on the latest version of Dagger, which was released Friday, so it's 18.5. So let's see. So now I have the Dagger JSON, which kind of defines our data that we need. You know, which version of the engine we want to run, the SDK and the source, and then where the actual directory is. I think it was version 12. We have backwards compatibility mode. So even if we, set this to a lower version, and you are running, say, 19, it would still run. It would figure out the right version to actually use for the engine. So here I now have my .dagger directory with my source code and my main and init. And really, it's the main we want to look at. And we have two functions by default. I think we went over this last time on the live stream, so I'm not going to go too much of that. But I know that my autocomplete is not going to work with Python and Z. So I believe I need to close this out. And I think I'm going to struggle to remember the commands. I should just actually look at the docs. That'd be
Yes.
a good place to start. IDE, Python. So typically it says to do Dagger develop, but we're not going to do that because we just did a Dagger in it. So it already kind of did this develop step for us. And we use UV, which funny enough is a Rust Python dependency manager written in Rust. So we're going to UV run and then the application we want here. And I'm going to type Z because I'm a fan. And that's just how we're going to do it. So UV run Z. And now I pull this back. Let's see if it works. So it's telling me it's got Python. And
Does it have an
next to
option
it,
for a different virtual environment where it says homebrew?
Xcode. Has Xcode 313.
We try, because basically if you go back to your terminal, you should see that it ran some VM stuff maybe.
So I need to run that first.
Not.
I don't see any output there. Well, that should be part of the UV run, I think.
But you can also try it. You could try before you do your UV run, do a UV VM.
Yeah, is there a VM for right now? Like, did it create one?
I hit LS and see. You got
yeah, that's not one.
Yeah.
Look, we already found something changed in the docs.
Yes.
I wonder if that's a different, like a version change with UV, because it definitely used to work like that.
Yeah, I used to automatically make one.
Well, I did that in the root directory too, right? So maybe I shouldn't be in the root directory.
What do you mean?
For UV, because I should be in the .dagger directory.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, that might. Yeah, maybe that makes sense.
Try it. Yeah, good idea. Let's see what happens.
Oh, I've actually seen someone post the same thing. I think there's an issue on this one. And to fix that, I've seen the Dagger does not have a version with UV. You can just put 0.1. I think is how you fix that. Let me close that again. And UV run Z. Okay.
Okay, that looked like it did something. Oh, cool.
It's got a .vm.
So that's much better. Let's try that from the root directory too, because I don't obviously want to have just the Dagger directory. I want to see all the code.
Yeah.
UV run Z. No, it's going to yell at me.
Yeah, I think it's not finding the virtual environment in the subdirectory, but you might be able to point at it explicitly. I'm not sure. I can't remember how to do that with Zed. There used to be, or there probably still is, like a pyrite config that you can add, but I don't remember what the format is like for that.
Let's well, let's just close that out, and we're gonna UV what was the app? Also UV run Z. See if it. No, it's not even gonna pick it up, is it? Yeah, because I was gonna say just delete that and try again, but I think it's because there's
some people have put it in their .z settings JSON. So probably if you like hit command comma or whatever that is to open it, and then there's a setting that looks like, let's see, I'm gonna pop it into our chat amongst ourselves here. They just kind of added in like a VM path. So like they put like,
you want to tell me what to type because I can't
it's
see.
in the, oh, you can't see our chat maybe. So
Yeah.
basically here you would just create a new like JSON object, and you'd have a key that's VM.
Oh, like I'm gonna
like
butcher this
JSON.
horribly.
Yeah, just make a curly brace, and and then
Yell at me the whole time.
Like, is it go inside this JSON that we already have?
Yeah, I think it might.
Yeah.
So so I'm already in this JSON, so what would the key be?
So just make a JSON object.
I think we're already in one though. That's the thing.
Oh, what don't like see right above? Oh, can't you make a? Oh, I see. Okay, so maybe just two keys. We can see. Let me see if there's a key for it.
Yeah,
there's VM and VM path.
Yeah, VM and VM path.
And this would be a string, so whatever you want to name the VM, like Dagger or something. No, sorry. The key is VM, and then the value is whatever you want to name it. So Dagger.
Oh, got it. VM
:Dagger. And then a comma.
VM
path with a capital P.
Yep.
That would be the absolute path to the .dagger.vm.
Which I deleted, so I have to add that back in. Which means I need to go into that Dagger directory and add that. Okay. So glad we got that sorted. And oh no! All right, now I gotta open it.
You might there's a hotkey or command to reload the LSP that I use a lot with Zed.
Oh, I think it's Command Shift P, and I just type in reload. Usually is.
Yeah, or like restart or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Fingers crossed. No.
Oh, you'll have to select it in the bottom right if it's an option. No, it's not. So I think that maybe that config isn't getting picked up, or we're missing something there.
All right. Well, we're off to a lightning fast start here. So.
Yeah, the way I've done this before they automatically loaded VMs was with a Pyrite config.
Should I just break down and do code? You probably will not appreciate my line height and style choices there.
No.
So it might be worse.
Yeah, we could do that, or have basically two separate windows.
Let's just maybe just two separate windows. UV run.
Was that, by the way, was that settings.json effectively what we were editing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like everyone who like edits it shows it wrapped in its own object, so it made me wonder if, but I guess, yeah.
Sed
Hey, there's
Python UV.
Hmm.
Let's just go here. Sed will detect Python virtual environments and automatically activate them in a terminal. Pi left, pi right.
Is this the page you're looking at, Jeremy?
No, I was looking at issues in the Zed repo, GitHub issues, where folks were just putting it
People
in their
tried-
settings, JSON, when they said it was working for them.
All right, let's give this one more good effort. Settings.
So, like, for example, let's just see what this looks like here.
Should be like that.
Look at that Python one. Look at the Python path. Interesting. I wonder if you could move those guys.
Oh, that made it
Oh, that's worse.
objectively worse. Oh man.
Just a second here.
It doesn't. It's like it doesn't recognize the virtual environment at all. UV run.
But it does
Right, we
work
should-
when you it does work when you run this command inside the .dagger folder, right?
Yeah.
One other thing is, can you throw those keys under Python in the settings, under the Python object that was in there, down at the bottom?
At a LSP pyrite settings.
You see the Python key there? Can you just
Oh,
throw the
these
VM?
ones.
Yeah.
Well, I think that Python path is not valid too, so maybe delete that or change that. So we don't have like a .vm from here.
Just had that pulled up. Was that opt homebrew bin Python 3? Let's try that. Like it knows. So VNV Dagger, the path is in that Dagger directory VNV. Okay. Let's reload and then I guess try to UV run it again if it doesn't like that. And then I think we should vote for 2 different editors at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, something's
Interesting.
showing up. Can always switch to Go. All right, well, we'll open up 2 editor windows. Or actually, just tell me if this is really that bad.
Yeah, let's see.
What's the repo that you could clone down? Which one did you?
I forked not that one. Forked the
Is it yours,
this
Vikram?
one.
Or-
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Vikram's, but I made a fork and I deleted the Dagger stuff out of there so we could start
Let me look
from
at
scratch.
it. Here. Fast AP. Okay. Vikram.
So did that code open?
It did.
VS Code. Let's see. Okay, so it's not seeing the VM either. Looks like.
I don't even know if I should have.
Do you need the Python for VS Code one?
Of course, this is deprecated.
Oh yeah, the extension.
Yeah, which one?
There's actually a link in the docs. I think it says which one. It says Python extensions.
Assuming, oh, look at that. VS Code Python. I just install it from here.
That looks like the one you had installed too.
Well, this one.
Like the one that's second on the list on the right side.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's the same one.
All right.
I think it's going to basically have the same issue then if it's not seeing the VM inside the subdirectory.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right.
Nice.
Yes, same issue. Well, all right. So let's I guess push forward and then just go into that Dagger directory and open it that way. UV run Z. Make this side by side. And then there's someone's gonna be watching this and yelling at us and how to do it properly.
That's what we're hoping.
You might have to revert some of those settings JSON changes.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll just delete that whole section there, the LSP one.
Do you think I need this or just comment it
No,
out?
I don't think so. Yeah, and then the whole
Seem to work
LS
without it,
report
I think.
too. Yeah, one extra curly brace still.
Thanks. Okay, now we're happy.
Nice.
Okay, back on track. So now that we have this, of course, there's a Z update. Let me just try to get a terminal so it's not going to be in a horrible spot. I don't know if that's readable or not. Can someone let me know?
Yeah. You can read that.
All right, so I'm in the Dagger directory, and one of the first things we kind of want to do is get the actual build environment set up. So, but actually before I do that, Dagger functions, just to make sure everything is ready to go. And then we can see that we should have these two functions, the grepdir and the echodir, which are kind of the default that ships with a new project when you emit.
Yeah.
All right, great. So got a baseline, so everything is good. So let's start by creating, I guess, an environment or build env is kind of the default that we set. And we will return a container because that's the best way to kind of get started. And for the docs, we'll just say build the environment for the application. And Vikram, I didn't look at any of your code, so you're probably gonna just duplicate of what you had in there before I deleted it.
Oh, it's okay. We'll build from scratch.
So
So you probably want like a Python base, I guess, right? So Python
Yeah.
3.
Start with Python 3.11, I think, is the current one.
is it 3.11 or 3.11, right?
Yeah, 3.11.
All right, well, let's just Dagger functions, just make sure functions. And then we'll obviously want to copy, this will be useless without the actual directory of the source code. So I'm going to go into the docs because I can't remember the syntax for Python. And default paths is what I'm going to look for. So in Python, I'm just going to pull this in, and then I'll need to make sure I import those these new can't think what they're called right now off the top of my head.
New
Annotated.
objects.
Thank you. Default path. Which default path function?
Annotated, it's from typing.
Thank you. Okay, and let's just do Dagger functions again. And the default path, if we want to kind of explain this, is really based on the Git or on the Dagger. I'm horrible at explaining this, so someone can happily hop in and explain what that slash means. Because you would think by default, by looking at this as a normal ops kind of person, that's your root, your whole volume, but that's actually not your whole volume. Dagger.
So that'll be the root of your Git context, which is the whole Fast API project here.
So here, well, I did put it at the bottom, didn't it? Okay, so the argument, so we didn't actually put any docs in there, which is fine. Don't really need to, but we know that when we call this, we don't always want to type in the source directory as a flag. We kind of want to default to what's over here. And that's what Kyle was explaining is this slash right here. I think also there's some other things in here. You can look through the docs for that. But
yeah, let's dig into that actually for a second. Like just
right.
for a second, because it's interesting. Like, so can you run I mean, maybe we don't want to run it yet. Maybe it won't do anything, but it is interesting, like this nuance. So we have this whole notion of like a context directory. And, the idea being that Dagger is super sandboxed. Like we want you to have full control over what is actually coming, what is actually accessed on your file system. So whether it be an input, like if you're giving a directory full of source code or a file, or whether it's an output, if you're exporting something to your local disk, we don't want it to just happen, or to have, have access be something that is not fully explicit, except as a convenience, we've decided that, hey, if we're in the context of your Daggerized project, so you're already saying like, I'm putting Dagger in control of this scope, then it's reasonable that within that context, Dagger can access things like, say, a source code directory. So there's some nuance here about whether whether you're in a Git context or just in a Dagger module context, though, and which this graph is trying to help you.
So that means I can't do something like Dagger call build env. Is that what I call it? Yeah, build env source. Type. Like I can't set my root or /user/JSON, right?
So you can, but you can't set that as the default path in your code.
Got it. Okay.
So this is you being explicit that you want to send that directory in, and you could send in that directory. You could also make that like a Git URL that you're sending in as a directory. So that's saying you have control, but we don't want, like, if you were to download this, say you put up this Fast API module somewhere on Daggerverse or somewhere on Git in the Git, GitHub, GitLab somewhere, and somebody just pulled it onto their machine to use it, to run it. We don't want it to be able to grab something from their, root directory somewhere.
Yep, exactly.
Yes. So like similar to that, it's like the environment variables too. So if I was to export something in my shell here, like, foo equals bar, and expect that to be in this container that's created right here, that would not be the case, right? I would have to actually explicitly pass those M's in through here or set them here, right?
Yep. Anything that you want to be in that sandbox environment needs to be an argument to the function, basically.
Awesome. Okay. So now we've given it the directory. We said we're going to make a new container from Python 3.11, and we're going to pass the source with that default path, which is going to create a result of this directory right here. So now we need that code in the actual application, or in the container, I should say. So I think that would be with mounted directory. Code completion is so nice, especially when you're working with something you don't use all the time. So it needs a path and a source. So I guess we could give it just /app. That's usually what I set. And then the source would be the actual type of source. And it looks like it's happy.
Yeah, so that's a good time to kind of explain the difference between with mounted directory and with directory as well, I think.
I think it's great because I always get this confused. I always think it's a synced directory, but that's not the case, right?
Correct. But also there's still probably a difference that we can dig into between with mounted directory and with directory. So
Is
with
that in our-
directory,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I'll ask after.
sure. Yes, it's documented, and it's basically the with directory is going to make that directory. This is off the top of my head, so I don't know if it's word for word what our docs say, but it'll be part of that container's root file system. And so if you do something with that container, like export it or publish it or something like that, then that directory is going to be part of that image. With mounted directory is basically a different kind of file system that's not going to be published with your image.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
actually there in the docs as well. I think if you search for it.
Yeah, that top one, I think.
Yeah, pretty much what you
Types.
just said.
Yep. Nice.
Um,
Yeah, so it's copying versus mounting. There you go.
And there's a couple of places I think it might make it sense for us to like make it more explicit somewhere in here. I think in the cookbook we have some warnings about it.
yeah, it's in the cookbook, and it should also be, I think, in the arguments page, maybe, where we're talking about directories. Like if you go to the arguments page, directory arguments, maybe something there. I know it's there in a couple of places. I don't remember exactly where.
Go scroll down a little bit. There's there might be if you look for like a warning or something like that, be interesting. It might be something we want to beef up because yeah, I think the places I've seen it most highlighted have been in the cookbook itself. So if you go to the cookbook on the left really quick and then look for with mounted or look for mounted in here, just a search yeah.
I think it should be in the first one.
Mount or copy a directory to a remote repository or remote repository to a container.
Yeah, just scroll down a bit. It should be somewhere.
Type mounted and you'll see the enter.
Yeah, I mean, it
the
does say
key
it over
part.
here, right?
Yeah,
It does
what we're looking at
say
here.
alternative option, difference between the two approaches.
Yeah, because this can catch you. Like say if you're like building this image and you're using a with mounted directory and trying to actually publish that. That's usually like where people find out the difference between mounted and with directory, right? Because you said it does not copy it into the container. That's going to get pushed or built.
So that green tip section that you scroll past is kind of the main deciding point on whether you want mounted or with directory.
So for the build environment, I think we would want to do just directory, right? Or would we want to do a with mounted directory for this?
So if this container somewhere in our CI chain here is going to be something that we publish and then use as like a production image, then we want it to be with directory.
Okay.
But if this source code that we're mounting ends up creating a binary in another directory outside of /app, right? If say we end up with a /dist or something like that, then and we export that instead, then this could be mounted and that would be fine.
Yeah, exactly. So in this case, like with Python, you're probably going to ship all the code with your application. With something else, like if you're building a static app with Node, then doing mounted's probably fine because you're probably going to get that build asset and put it in a slimmed down container, or like a Go application where you might build some binaries and put them in a slimmed down container. So that kind of thing. But with Python, you probably actually want all of the source code in your container.
So copy it
Right.
in.
Copy it in.
So with directory, right? That's the
Yep.
Okay. So should we just run that once and see
Yeah.
what happens?
Maybe just pipe it to a terminal as well, so then we can.
Yeah, that's actually
terminal.
so. I ran help earlier, right? And you saw these kind of outputs, and it's got terminal here. Because we returned a container, then we get a lot more options than if we return something like a directory. So let's do terminal. So we'll say Dagger call build env terminal. Again, we're just chaining that call. And then let's see what's in here.
Attaching a terminal. Took a second to copy things in, probably. Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm just did a pwd and I'm in the /root of this. But remember, we copied it into /app, so I could set my workdir to be /app, so I didn't have to change that. But always gets me. LSLA. So here we have our project, right?
Nice.
And we also have our Dagger directory, which I don't think it really matters for, but you can filter those to exclude those. If you didn't want to copy those kind of files in there, like build or GitHub Actions or whatever in your final image, you could filter that directory out to exclude certain things.
Like, what are some reasons you might want to filter?
Let's say if I have a GitHub Actions, maybe there's something specific in there, or if I know some people like to actually do database backups into their repo and check it in. You wouldn't want to exclude, or you want to exclude those kind of those files, like the .sql, .sql zip, or .github directory. It's really just kind of like trying to slim down the actual final size. So if you have a lot of stuff in your repo or large files, you wouldn't want to copy that in. That's primarily what I would use it for. And for caching, yeah, that's a good point.
So if you
Files
have
that change a lot.
Yeah, if you have files that change a lot that don't actually affect your build, then you probably want to exclude those here so that if you're making changes to your GitHub Actions, it's not going to invalidate your caches.
Also, too, and we probably would, in this case, since we're actively working on Dagger in the Dagger directory, we probably want to exclude that too, right? Because we're going to be making a lot of changes there.
Potentially, it's up to you, because part of it is, if we're changing this, then it's going to rebuild it anyway, because we're going to have a different build basically. But as it grows in complexity, you definitely want to refine what your inputs are to each environment.
The other thing that I've done is, like, if you're publishing this as a image, finally, like you don't want the .dagger folder in it, you don't want the .git ignore folder in it. So you could filter it, or there's also the source directory object itself comes with a without directory, I think, method. So you can actually say, I want the source directory but without the Dagger directory, and it'll just exclude it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, for this case, I think we can probably just add a workdir and then see what function we want to build next. Or maybe we want to also install our dependencies.
Yeah, I was going to say we probably need to install dependencies now.
Oh, I think that sequence should be the other way, right? Because /app won't exist, I think, until after the.
So it will work either way. It's whatever is easier for you to read, basically.
Okay.
So it's just
we'll create
setting,
the workdir if it doesn't exist, right? That's the reason why that'll work.
Maybe.
I think we create it. That's what I've seen. It's like Like if you say with workdir slash app and it didn't exist on an image, it'll
I think
create it.
I think
makes
it'll make
sense.
it, especially since we're copying it right in after that. Because I think that's really for the terminal session when you are going to execute commands in there, kind of will drop you into that path.
Can you do it on the shell really quick? Just exit and like let's just check it. Just say like Dagger call or Dagger core in this case. We should just do Dagger shell on this one. Just do Dagger minus C. So Dagger minus C and then a quote and then container pipe from
We're using
Python
Python
3.11 pipe with
to just actually get
workdir.
in the shell, so I could actually get the code completion. But yeah,
Yeah.
Container from Python is it with work. Can't remember if it's dir or
No
this one gets me every
workdir.
time.
Space. And then just pit slash foobar or something that definitely won't be there. And then do a terminal. Yeah, try that. There it is.
No. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
All right. My answer is that. Okay, so it will create the workdir, and one of the things that's interesting, I don't know if you can see it really well on the screen, but there's the ability to expand directories, and this is really good if you're like making really dynamic kind of calls or directories on the fly. Most of these can take this variable syntax where you can kind of define your container with an environment variable, say the version of Go or Python, and your workdir can kind of be dynamic. I think it works on other directory related things too. Yeah, expand true or false. So you actually can put variables in your path here and then just kind of use those as like dynamic building objects instead of writing that shell script that does it for you and copying it in. Right. But anyway, so dependencies. This is my least favorite part about Python is actually trying to figure out how to install that. So
For this one, it's pretty simple. There's a requirements.txt file, so we just do pip install requirements.txt, I think.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm running out of space here, so I'm going to try to do this the Python way and wrap this so we can keep seeing it. That way we can kind of clean this up and make it a little bit easier to read. I can't remember if it's Go or Python. That's period. It has to be at the end with Python, right?
Go is at the end. Python's in the. Isn't that right?
Python. I think it's the Python
Beginning.
starts with the yeah.
Is it okay? Just add that in real quick.
Nice.
Okay, so to install those dependencies, let me do it again with exec. One thing that first tripped me up with, it's already telling me what to do, to pip install the requirements text. One thing that tripped me up is kind of like the difference between exec and command in Dagger. For some reason, when I was working on the project at the last place, I had really thought like this would be like the last thing, but you can run multiple execs and kind of chain those. So Backblaze is annoying me today.
Were you thinking like a CMD, like in like a Docker container kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So this is more like a Docker file run, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's do the same thing, and I'm just going to do a build. And do we want to do a terminal? I'll just run it without it and make sure it works.
Cool.
Which we could actually. Let me see if this builds once successfully, and then let's run it again. I don't know about the caching for Python. Like I know with Node you can use volume caches, so we're not doing that all the time. But let's do that again. Yeah, so there. So the first time it installed all those dependencies. Next time it was a lot faster.
Nice.
And you see it's the actual same container ID here. The other thing I was going to say is the interactive debugging is also really useful here. So I can run this again with a change it to something missing. And then I'm going to pass, and like, it would be nice during your build pipeline if something happened, you know, I've just got this random error, if you could just kind of drop into that shell and see that. So I believe that's -I. So I can pass an interactive mode to Dagger, and what will happen is anytime an error will pop up here, I'll just be dropped into a terminal, and with that error, so now if I look here, I can see I have my requirements, and you know, obviously this was a very simple fix, but it's good to know that the interactive debugging is there. So then I could also, you know, if I was trying to test the actual dead autocomplete's gonna get me every time. Requirements.txt. Yep. The sh, the shell syntax gets me. But yeah, so you could run your commands here and basically have a way to verify, like during that build pipeline you're running locally, like, oh, okay, that was the right thing. It's just I had a typo, I renamed it to something else. So but I can get out of that and start over. So with that, I've got my build env, right? I'm make a new container from Python 3.11, and I could make those also an argument for the version if we want to make that more dynamic. I could put that here and set a default string, but I'm not going to do that. I'm setting my work directory for ease of use when I'm copying stuff to and from and getting a terminal shell. And then I'm copying my source directory into /app and then using with exec to actually install my Python requirements. So with that, our build env is essentially done. So we have a function to build our environment, and we can now chain this to run something like tests. So do we want to start off with running the app first, or do we want to start with testing? That's a good question there. I'm going to say,
Yeah, let's try test.
let's make a new function, def build or def tests. Test, whatever you would like to call it. Self, and I'm just gonna hit tab on that just to get that out of the way.
Yeah,
So
we're vibing now.
I I find this really opinionated here, but returning a string for your tests because you kind of want to see that output there. Does anyone have opinions or objections to returning a string?
Yeah, sounds great.
Perfect. No objections then. All right, so I'm gonna test function check if the app is running. So that's like the most generic thing. Run
Will be just like run unit tests or something.
tests. So since we have our build env here, we already have kind of our step to set up the environment, to copy the source, to do our dependencies. We could just call self.build env.
Yes.
And what are we using for testing on this? That's a great
Yeah, it has PyTest, so you can use
PyTest.
Yeah.
Vibe.
Nice. So now we just need to pass in the source.
Source. Yep. And this is the good time. So I follow the rule of 3, and I know we're going to get there. So we can, you know, if you repeat something 3 times, you should look at maybe moving it. So we know we're going to have a test. Or I know, Kyle, you like to have the build env and then you pipe in commands for like as a service. But also there's, you know, you can just have a function called run, which does the same thing, pulls the build env and exposes the ports and runs it locally. It's all a matter of how you really want to do that. So, but I say that with, you know, now we're gonna have to put the source here too, right? And what we could do is just copy this and paste that here. And then we'll just say source is also here, which is going to yell at me.
Well, are you trying to say at some point we're going to have done this default source thing 3 times and we should move it into like a constructor or something? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. You know where I'm going with this.
Okay. All right.
Oh, this is going to get me. The Dagger type system is, or the Python type system is going to get me right now.
That's okay. So all you have to do is await that. So you say return await, and then your function is also going to be async. And then you're set.
That's it.
Beautiful. Okay. So with exec, if you look here, go down to the return type, returns a container, right? And that's obviously what we were getting yelled at because it was saying you can't return a container as a string. So we have standard out and standard error that you can actually pull. I'm not sure if, actually, I don't know if one does both, or should we, in a test environment, should we return standard error versus standard out? Is there
So you typically want standard out because the output of PyTest will be in standard out.
Okay. So now we have this async, thanks Kyle, function called test, which takes the source, and we have the source here. There's some duplication. We're going to ignore that for now.
And that's a good point, right? Is that when you've got leaf, so like we're building a DAG, right? So we're building this DAG and we're very lazy about executing the DAG until the last moment. It's essentially until like a leaf node end of the DAG is called for. It's something to emit, and so standard out is one of those functions that emits a scalar thing, a string. And so that's forcing execution of the DAG at that point. And since we can't just lazily keep chaining and we have to like resolve it now, that's why we have to await it. That's why we can't just, act like it's lazy, because we have to really wait for it to give us a value back.
Exactly. So in TypeScript, it would also be returning a promise, and we'd await that promise. In Go, we would actually pass in a context with that function call, and we would get back the resulting string as well as an optional error if there was an error that happened. So however each language handles async IO like that, then that's how you would do these leaf node operations.
I think interestingly in the PHP SDK, this doesn't exist, right? It's just there's no async await over there.
Yeah, I know the PHP team is not the Dagger PHP team, but the PHP core team is talking about trying to get some async stuff. I think that's been going on for years. I don't know if that's ever gonna take hold or anything, because I know there's like 2 Roadrunner and Swool and some other kind of PHP frameworks, you will. They're like C extensions to kind of make it async, but I don't know if that's going to be a core feature of PHP.
And the fun thing too is if you were to like now, say you made some Uber function, that was like called Uber or something that used build env and test inside of it. The fact that you're using an async function inside of Uber makes Uber async. It taints it. So like, just that's another thing, is if you start composing functions and you're like, how come, what's the problem here? Then you have to make sure you're awaiting your async functions, and that makes that.
Yeah, it bubbles all the way up. So like since std out itself is an async function, we have to await it. And since our function is awaiting something, then now our function is also async. And so anything that calls that async function then needs to await it, and so on, right?
So if I had like a publish function that would publish it to say ECR or Docker Hub, that would also have to be async if I want to do build environment test, or I guess test, because I wouldn't need to call build environment first, right? I would just call test first to run my test before I deployed it, and then we would the publish function would be async then, right?
Yep.
Perfect.
And the publish itself would also be async, so we'd have a couple of awaits in there. Another leaf node.
So let's just run the test. So
See if it
I feel like it's going to fail.
What?
Feel like it might.
I'm feeling good about it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm saying that because I don't know if these are actually unit tests or if they're integration
I
tests.
see.
So they might need a Postgres
So you mentioned
database.
Postgres, yeah. Yeah, I
So
see some Postgres
Uh-oh.
packages in there.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh no, what happened?
dum dum dum.
So couldn't find our Postgres database.
All right, so well, we know we have like an initdb, which we don't need to really go into the details of this, but we have a database URL environment variable, and we need a database. So it's a great time to talk about ephemeral services in Dagger. Actually, just go to the features page. So
Why do
when
we
you
call them
have these,
ephemeral services?
because they do not stick around.
Okay. It's not for running my website for
They are
3 years.
not for deploying to production. That
Okay.
will be a problem.
Okay. Good
So
for like tests and things like that.
yeah,
Dev
this is
environments.
great for tests. So there's a couple ways to use services. I'm just going to kind of create one on the fly, but you can pass them in as arguments, so you actually can expose your, like if I was running connecting to a Neon DB that's hosted in the cloud, right? I could pass that as a service, and I could run my tests against Neon for whatever reason. Or I can just make these on the fly because Dagger has awesome support for return types, so I can return and make a Dagger service inline, or I can make a function that returns a service. So I think either way kind of works. But in this case, I don't know if there's a specific version of Postgres we want, but let's just make a service inline. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, it should work with whatever the latest Postgres is.
Yeah, so let's do, let me see right here. We have these kind of arguments here. So it's very similar to building the Python application like we are now, right? So you're creating a container from Python with a worker, exposing a port, and then you call as service. So let's actually, oops, that's the comment. So let's call it SVC is, call that dag.container underscore from Postgres.
Yeah. I just
Let's do
pasted
latest.
my favorite from
What's your
Postgres.
favorite?
Yeah. Well, I just do then right from here. And the from on the Python from.
Oh, it's backwards. Thank you.
Yeah, it has underscore after because from is a reserved word, so this makes it cool.
I was getting that was my next question. Why is it that way?
Yeah, and so this will get good. This will get you a container. If you go back, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I wouldn't look at that example. Is a little weird because it's using a with exec to do something. But here, you just say like with environment variable with an M variable for, or I say let's do the exposed port first is fine. Either one with exposed port. So we want to expose the 5432. Yeah, for this service, and then love it. And then the final thing you want to do is set
all the environment variables, right?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a couple ways to do this, I would guess. So there's some connection string that y'all had floating around, right? But
yeah, so the app wants database URL. And I think that's actually here, right? So there's kind of our example. But the key thing here is we are connecting to Postgres with a user called Postgres and a password called secret. So Docker Hub.
So what I usually do is I put Postgres password as the environment variable, and you can use that would be one thing you can.
Yeah.
You can just put secret there and done.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we're going to define those environment variables in this new service container that we're making.
Yeah.
with environment variable and see if it's
Yep.
secret.
it.
Nice. And then that should be all you need. Then you just need a.
Oh yeah, Postgres user is defaults to Postgres, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah.
And we're actually
default
going to
user.
define the whole string so we can call this whatever we want to, right?
What's that?
We're gonna pass in the database URL in a minute, so we can call
That's
these
true.
things whatever we want. And then
That's
we just
true.
want that as service, right?
Yep.
As service.
Now you got.
And we're not going to set any args here because we're going to let all the default stuff kind of run because Postgres is kind of made to run like this. So it has good defaults for running that. But in that example, if we were running a Nginx or Python app, we could pass in the args there. All right. So now that we have a service, we want to pass that to our container that's going to run the actual application. So we're going to build environment. We're going to run the PyTest. Before we run the PyTest is where we want to stick that. So with, I think we'd want to define the database URL, right? So we would say with environment variable, and I'm gonna break this into 2 lines just so it's a little bit easier to read too. I believe it's here. Or do I need to do?
Yep.
Okay. So with environment variable called database URL, and then I'm just gonna copy this to make that easier. Now here's the interesting, we're talking about container to container kind of networking, right? So let me just break this up a little bit so it's a little bit easier to see. Now localhost is not localhost, so that will not work the way we expect it to. Oh, you know what? We forgot one thing. Well, we just changed this to Postgres. App doesn't exist, so we'll use the default Postgres database.
Yeah.
But localhost does not exist, right? So how would we pass in a host name that we know would work? We're going to do a with service binding, right?
Yep.
With service binding. And if we look at this, just do autocomplete there. It takes an alias, and then the actual service is the type. So we're passing the service we created up here, and we're passing it as the name DB. And then that would translate this DB host name to the hosting that we would use to actually connect to Postgres. So we could call it DB, or we call it database. It doesn't really matter. You could call it whatever you want because Dagger will handle the networking behind the scenes. So I think that's all we need for exposing Postgres, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
To the
We'll
container.
get an entry. We'll get an entry in the etc host file. Is how it ends up implementing it in the container.
Exactly. It's similar if you've used like Docker Compose before. So similar with specifying hosts and connecting containers.
Perfect. So let's do Dagger call test. Actually, let's drop in a Dagger shell for a second because there's more than one way to execute a function, right? Test. And we'll see there's no excludes here, right? We were talking about filtering and excluding stuff earlier. You can see it made the database URL. It's creating that container for the database. And now we're installing our requirements. And we should see our test run successfully. Look at that.
What?
There we go. Some successful tests. It's great.
All right.
So successful.
All right. So we've got a build env. We've got the test function, which now uses the service. And we also have the Python testing or PyTest running here. We passed the service into our test function, so that container can run tests. I guess the next step would be to run this locally. If we want to kind of preview this. So we could make a new function, and we'll call this. Now, we talked about this earlier. Oh, Lucas already knows what we're doing. We could call it run, call it preview, call it, again, naming is totally up to you. But because this one is, let's just say we want to have a full test suite when we run it locally. Maybe you don't, it's not your styles. Maybe you want to have you know, a build or a publish and a run, or preview doesn't run tests. But let's just say let's run it with the test, right? So does that everyone sound good to everyone?
Yeah, sounds great. So you
Now,
probably want a service here or a container.
yeah, so that's a good question. So we could return the Dagger.service, which means it'll always kind of expect it to be a service, or we could also call it a Dagger.container like we're doing down here. And we could still use it as a service, but that would require us to pipe in the as service and with exposed ports and etc. So I would vote for returning us a service here. Is that
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good.
so we'll return a Dagger.service, and we'll cheat because it already knows what we're doing. I'll just copy this service here because we know we're going to need that. And this is where we could talk about making this its own function.
Oh, but we're only at 2. It's only 2 invocations. The magic number was 3, right?
Yeah, you're right. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me pull that in because I don't like the squigglies.
It's just
not
complaining
gonna-
because we haven't
thank
returned
you.
one yet, right?
Yeah, you're right. So we'll create our service here. Do the same thing we did before. Return await, and we'll do the same thing. We'll build. I don't know what the
Do we need to wait
unicorn-
for this one? I guess we'll see.
Well, the build. Oh, we're not doing tests. I said we're going to do tests, but we don't have to do tests. So I don't think we need to. So let's actually not do async. Let's not do the tests in this one. Return that service, and then we'll return. So we'll do the self.build, the environment. We'll pass the source again, or that magic number of 3, as Kyle pointed out. We'll pass that database URL. We'll bind that, and let's do as service. And I actually don't know what commands we would run to run the actual app. So here we would pass in the args. Which I don't know if
It's
that's
got a
actually
suggestion that's running UVCon.
Cool. Right here.
Oh, is that correct?
I'm trying to remember when I ran it last. Yeah, I think I used something
Luckily,
like this.
we just deleted the repo that has the actual working code, so we can just cheat and look at it.
Yeah, what is this host thing?
A host is probably like, I think it's like fast API defaults to having defaults to only on local hosts. So you usually pass the first of all, I definitely don't know what that is at all.
It seems like we don't have that installed.
Yeah, so fast API. Oh, it is there now.
There's an example which says run it. It probably has the command like on the right sidebar. Okay.
Fast API dev main. Okay. So
Yeah, I think there is a main.py, so we could try that.
And this, I think, we'll see something interesting here. I'm just going to say main.py. Now we haven't exposed any ports. We could put those as args here if you want to kind of change the behavior. But let's do with exposed port 8000. That's not the right
We
way.
probably
'cause it
want
needs to
that
be
above as service. Yeah. Cool. And
with
is that the right
exposed.
port?
It's a great question. Oh, look.
Nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
AI for the win on that one. Okay, so we have a run function. We removed the async stuff out of there. We're passing in this source again and returning a service. We're creating a Postgres service inside of the function, and we're passing that like we did in our test. We're exposing the port 8000, and we're going to run this as a service. And the args that we're going to want to run are fast API dev main.py. I think this is not going to work because I think it's going to default to exposing it on localhost. So we'll have to look at that, but let's just try it. Now I'm already in a shell example or a shell session. So will I see my new function? No.
You will not. You want to restart your shell.
You'll have to reload it.
I do actually know kind of roughly what I'm talking about. So I'm just kidding.
All right.
So Dagger functions.
This is like Jason doing stuff for like the benefit of the audience. So what is my name?
What are containers? Let's start there.
That's right.
So we have build env, run, and test. So run the application. It's subtly named there. Dagger call run. Let's just try and see what happens. And we're returning a service, right? But nothing happened. So this goes back to that whole chaining the args and the types. So if I look at help here on this service, you can see that we can also chain these on there. So the host name, the ports, start, stop, up, with host name. So let's do up.
Yeah, so we can see that
if
help
it
text
works.
up will actually connect, or it'll create a tunnel from your local host to this running container, so you can connect to it.
Well, let's see if the fast API dev will actually run on localhost in the container, or if it'll expose it on like 0000. So see here, it's exposing it on localhost, right? So we're still waiting on up, and I think we'll just always be in a perpetual state of waiting for this because it's not going to expose that to all the network interfaces in the container. So let's cancel that. See if we can figure out. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a terminal, right? So let's do build env terminal. And let's do fast API. Every single time gets me. Yes, I have a habit of
Why don't you,
overwriting the entry.
Maybe just
Go to bash if you're not.
Yeah, I
I
was
was
gonna
just
say.
Type bash.
I was just gonna say just type bash, and then we get the
And then you
completion.
can specify which shell you want to use too, right? So you can,
Yes.
if you don't want to type that every single time. Fast API dev. Okay. So what does
it
it
needs to
say?
show it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do fast API dev. Does help work on fast API? There we go. Okay, so
Oh, I see host. There we go.
Host.
so yeah, we would want to expose that here. So we're gonna say dev. I think its syntax would be dev args path. Yeah. Okay. So we'll do host. Let's paste that in. I can get my keyboard to work. Host equals that. Port we're going to leave as default, but if we were to change that, say someone else is running a different app on port, and we added that as an argument to this function, so people can override that when they run it, you'd also have to pass the port here as well. So let's get
There's
out
a
of
comma missing. in the args.
Oh, thank you. All right, so let's call run up again. So we changed it to expose it to all the interfaces in the container. And let's see if this works. And do the install again.
Yeah, so in the future, if we were making improvements here, we could have a cache volume for those dependencies.
Oh, look,
There we go.
I
We
have a
got tunnel.
tunnel. So I
Ooh.
have a tunnel on my 8,000 to 8,000. When I have the up command, when I did the Dagger call run up, I can override those ports. So if I have a collision, there's also a way to do that too. So if I go to localhost 8,000, detail not found. Okay,
I
Yeah,
think
I think
that's
it's
a successful failure.
it's
Yeah, I
this is a
think so.
successful failure.
Yeah.
we just need the correct and there's some endpoints. I think we can just point it to those endpoints.
Yeah, I'm gonna use HTTP Pi because I don't like curl. I don't think it looks good. And everyone's gonna yell at me. That's fine.
No, I haven't used that tool for a second. I liked it though when I did.
So we know, is it books, right?
Um,
Detail.
Now, can we just look at the source code? Don't remember offhand. Maybe it's /API books. I'm not completely sure. Oh, it is /books.
/books. Books
Yeah.
does the trailing
You might
slash
have to
matter here?
create some books first. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I have to post some stuff into it. It's like an empty database.
Okay, so let's change a post. REST should be this endpoint, right? So let's see if we get validation. No, it's still telling me it's found. So UVI acorn. So it's a post.
Well, double check that route, I guess.
Router get, router post is /books. Status code. Maybe it is API or V1. Actually, don't know how to look at that with fast API.
It should be in main.py if there's a root something. Yeah, there you go.
Prefix /API. Yep, you are 100% right. It's like you wrote this, Vikram.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So now I'm running. Now I've got my Dagger workflow running, and I've got the actual API running as a service. So let's put some data in here. Missing body field required. I actually don't know what is the syntax for this one. Is it like name and author? Because I know we have like some dummy data.
Yeah, there's
in
a
here.
model. I think it's title and author.
Title and
Yeah,
author.
if
Yeah,
you look at the
title and
tests,
author.
we had them in there too. If you want some sample data.
Yeah, the unit test
Title.
exactly.
Some book. Author. I can't remember. I'm reading the Expeditionary Force series now. I moved on from Mercy of Gods, and I can't remember the guy's name, but Tom. It doesn't matter. Title, author. Oh, those are params. This gets me every single time with HTTP Pi. I always think that params are the body because I expect that to be the first thing, but title, book, author is someone, and boom, now I have
Oh,
a
nice.
book that's been created. It's
Yeah,
the first one.
got a 201 created. That's nice.
And if I switch to Git,
It's a really nice API, Vikram.
Yeah, it's brand new. First time.
So let's do a Git request there. Now we have our books.
Wow.
All right. So our API is running. We have tests in there. It's Daggerized, so we can pass this on to someone else and use it. But what happens when we shut down? Let's
Well, I hope we don't lose our data.
I hope not. That would be awful. So I'm gonna run. I left my computer and I went to sleep or whatever. So now I'm gonna just make sure everything's good to go, but it's not. So that's the ephemeral portion of these service containers. So they will not stick around, which is why if you wanted to pass those as args, you could use something else, like if you're running Postgres locally, or using Neon database that's in the cloud. You could just pass those in as arguments to your function and keep a consistent data set. I believe you could, with Postgres, you could actually use the cache directory, cache
Yeah,
volume, I should
you
say.
could. It's
Not,
not a guaranteed thing to be there,
yeah.
but it could help. It also might cause some weird behavior if you were using that for your tests, because you might have some stale database state that you might
Yeah.
be expecting to be empty.
So,
Sweet.
all right.
Well, do you want
Well,
to do one more thing here? And
do
we
it.
talked a few times about moving that source variable to up to the class. Do you want to show what that would look like?
Yeah, let's do that. I don't. I'm a huge fan of the rule of three, like I said earlier. So, let's talk about constructors. So constructors, if you use programming languages, you kind of know what they are. Dagger modules also have constructors. They're a way of kind of setting high level things. In this case, on the Python, it's going to be on the class. So instead of passing those items in, we can refer to those in our functions. So they're defined one time. And it's not every single function is going to have a source, going to have a password, a token, or any kind of a secret, or whatever you're passing into your module. You can kind of make those, if they're reused a lot of times, you can just put them as constructors. So let's do this. We'll start with source, because we know I'm actually going to, we need this over here. I'm going to close this one out.
Nope, go for it.
All right. So, so I have my class, I have my source. So let's make that a high level thing to do. And let's do source equals, I believe you just can take this whole thing, right?
Yeah, just copy it.
To your path, and I can remove this argument here.
Yeah.
And do self.source. And let's remove it here.
That's great. So we kind of saw with this module that every single function needed to reference that source. So we kind of realized that that's actually more of a property of this class and not just a function argument. So you're able to abstract it in one layer there.
Just gonna. Oh, yeah, don't need it there.
Oh yeah, there you
Why are
go.
they yelling at me? Same here. Got to pay attention to those red squigglies. Actually mean something. So, so we could take this to another step. We could also, set the port on the constructor. The Postgres password. If you're super secure about your local passwords, that's fine. I actually do kind of like the random generated passwords to kind of make sure your app's actually working and can expect and deal with changes. But we also change like the Python version. So if we wanted to test this programmatically, we could just also go up here and say version. But we don't need to do that right now. So yeah. So now that's pretty clean. We have a build environment. It's kind of our first step, where we kind of make our container, install our dependencies. We have our test function, which needs a database service. And then we'll run PyTest and pipe that to standard out. So we actually see the output here. And then we have our run function, which lets us look at the service and kind of play with it locally, and using an ephemeral container for the database, so that, or service, so that doesn't actually stick around, so it'll be gone. We saw that we restarted it and the books were there, or the one book we made was not there. The next step would really be to publish this somewhere that we could actually use. So And I guess that's a very, very opinionated word there, right? So def publish. I don't. How are we doing on time? Are we good to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, we can wrap
Yeah,
it up whenever, or keep it going either way.
All right. So let's create a new function called publish self string. We're going to return the string type because we're going to use ttl.sh. You see those in our docs a lot. That's just like an ephemeral container registry, so we don't have to have auth or anything. And if we were going to publish this, I would assume we'd want to run unit test and our database test. So we would look here, and so we would probably call test, but test returns a string, right? So we go back to the whole return type stuff, where this is useful here, but how would we want to handle this publish function, which is going to return a string by default, but we want to run those tests and also publish this.
Yeah, well, I think in that case, you probably don't need to do anything with the test output. If something happened and you wanted to dig into it, then you would have that output in wherever you're running your tests. Yeah, you just basically await self.test.
We to wait self.test, which means this needs to be async.
Yep.
And we'll run those tests, and then we will also
So we're basically going to return the build env with probably a few more things tacked onto it, right?
yeah, return await. So we'll say self.buildenv. Why it's yelling at me. And I don't remember the syntax, container type, and then I believe it's just export, right? Is that the right one?
No, so you want to .publish.
Yeah,
Publish, thank you. I said that. ttl.sh is the example, and then we'll do, let's get rid of that. That's going to create some random stuff with a SHA on it. Okay, is that all? Is that really it?
Yeah, so there's some things you might want to set if you're making this like your actual publish function. So you might set like the defaults command, expose port, all those things that you'd have on your image metadata, basically. So that when you pull and run the image, it's actually going to do something you might want.
All right, so with that, that being said, then we'll probably wrap it up after this, but we'll probably want to run that fast API command, right? Let's just say that's the, we'll use dev, even though you're not supposed to, because I don't think that's the right, I was like, where is it?
Yeah, we can use the same one, and we'd probably want to be able to specify a database URL with that container. So I guess how might we do that? Maybe the .env has something I'm not sure, or we would have we'd have an entry point and basically let the runner of the container pass some flags. Yeah, there's a few other ways I guess you could set up your production container, but yeah, it would just instead of as service, we just have it with exec, or sorry, with default.
Entry point. Oh, okay. I was going to use entry point.
With what?
Yeah, with entry point works. Yeah.
Okay.
Either with entry point or with default args, and then get rid of the args part, and you're all good.
Does it need the args? It needs the args, right?
Oh, right. Sorry. If it was with default args, you wouldn't. So that's good. Yep.
Okay.
So that would look a lot like your Docker file if you had all those steps we had in our build environment, and then you would say port 8000, and then entry point, fast API dev, all the stuff we have here.
Yeah, you probably would not want to use the word dev there, but we can skip that part.
Yeah.
All right, so let's run it, right? So Dagger call publish.
Yeah, and so the way this is set up is that it'll look for an environment variable called database URL. So once the container is published, and if you were to Docker run it, and let's say you had a Postgres in the cloud or something like that, you could do a Docker run with a -e and database URL equals whatever that connection string is,
Yep,
and
there
your
you go.
container, your container would start up and connect to your cloud database, and you could just use it.
Well, I could do something weird too, where since this publish is returning a string, I could actually have a preview function, right? And I could have it call publish, would do all the stuff I need to do, and then I would just actually dynamically pull that image, right? So it would be something like this. So then I could just create that local database so I could test the whole end to end. We ran the test, we did the build environment, we published that to a container registry, which returned a string, and then that string would be the argument from the container from the ttl.sh here, right? And then we would pass those. This is the service, but yeah, the same thing. So we would pass kind of these in there, so we could actually have like a full end-to-end kind of test and run with that, which would be kind of interesting. But yeah, I think that's
I think
it in a nutshell.
one thing that would be interesting is that we in this publish function we are running the tests and then we're publishing it. I think it's interesting to see what happens if the test function fails. I think, like, as far as I remember, what happens is that it won't publish it. Like, it'll just stop where the test failed. So we could introduce a test failure and just to kind of demonstrate how that works.
Yeah, let's try that.
So like
the test
test
main.
and
So let's do comment it out. Just get rid of book 2, right?
yeah, that should work, I guess. Yeah, it's not creating it, so
They're called publish. All right.
yeah.
So it
because,
didn't actually publish anything.
Yeah, so because like the test failed, that error bubbled all the way up, and it didn't go to the next part of it, which was publish.
So
And
let's look at.
Oh yeah, nice idea. Yeah, let's trace. Cool idea.
So yeah, let's see kind of everything that happened because I have my Dagger cloud token set up. And you kind of see that in a little bit more visual way.
Nice.
So that's like the basics of taking something and converting it to a Dagger workflow.
Is it? I don't know if we have time, but would it be interesting to show testing against different versions? Like it's we just put a loop around the test, like create an array with a couple of versions and then just loop the tests around it.
Like different versions of Python, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, do we have time for that? You want to do that real quick, or?
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to show just how easy it is because it's just a for loop basically in Python, and you're doing something really powerful with that.
So I guess we'll create a new function, right? And we'll say, well, I guess we would probably want to change the version is hard coded, right, on the build env.
Yeah, so you want like a
so we could pass that as an argument and then
it defaults into that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up because I can never remember the syntax.
Yeah.
Cards.
There you go, third one.
String. I clicked on the default values down here, right?
There you go. Yeah. So you just say equals whatever you want it to be.
So we'll go here. So the version by default it is 3.11, and then this is I'm gonna use yeah, we don't want slim. That syntax gets me every time, the F syntax. So now we have the build env function that takes a version with a default of 3.11. So we could run everything the way it is now, but we want to add and I think that function was async, right? For test, yeah. So we'll do, let's call it run multiple.
Oh, is it not? Could we instead? I don't know if it's simpler, but inside the test function itself, could we just loop the await thing?
We could do that.
Is it?
Sure. Yep.
I don't know which one is better. I'm just. I don't know if it makes a difference really.
Yeah, so let's do a for loop because it's going to be fun for me in Python. For I guess I would define versions equals that's an array 311, 310. Look at that.
There it is.
Yeah, this is why we're so productive, because we don't need to actually write anything. Now, is it going to yell at me because I'm not returning a string, right?
So what you want to do is, you see that with exec lost its standard out at the end there, and then we'll basically below versions before your loop. I would just create like an empty string, which is like test output or something. And then output would plus equals await.
Yeah, just append it right.
Before the await, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Plus equals
And
await.
then return output. Boom.
All right.
So,
and then
so yeah, now you can test 3 different versions. Maybe throw a 2 in there. See what happens.
that'll be fun. And you can too also in this docs you can pass arrays too. So if you wanted to pull that out again into this, you can pass different versions on the fly. But let's go ahead and run that. And here too, the other thing is we are not making this in the for loop, which is a good practice here, because we don't want to have a database for every single one.
As long as each of those cleans up the database, we should be safe, I guess.
I'm about to find out, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Maybe it doesn't.
And then the other thing we could do is, maybe not right now, but someone could run these concurrently as well, instead of having each one run in series. Oh, we had the broken test still, so that's great.
Yeah. That was in this one. Try that again. We all know this is going to fail because there's no way. So 311 is running now. There's no way.
I have confidence in the 3s. I think 2 is a guaranteed failure.
2 is definitely gonna bomb here.
I saw some passed in there, so 3 passed. We're on 3.9 now.
And this is great too, because a lot of GitHub Actions you'll have a matrix where you're passing in all the language versions. Well, this is gonna be good.
2.7.
And so this is kind of doing the same thing, but letting you run it locally, which is a huge thing about Dagger, is you get to run this locally.
There we go.
Yeah. Who uses Python 2? Come on.
We saw those other ones pass, and then it got all the way to 2, so that's really cool. They were able to validate all those different versions here.
That's it. Yeah. So we have a full workflow we can run locally. We can push that, hook that into GitHub Actions, or Jenkins if you must, or any of those kind of CI systems that you want. We support almost all of them. Actually, we support anywhere a container can run. Right? We can work with Dagger and build pipelines there.
Yeah, and if you want to push up these changes, then we can link the code for posterity with the video.
Perfect.
And yeah, and I think that's it. Any other quick things on here, or we can wrap it up?
I think that's everything.
Cool.
I think the one thing that's useful for people to know, maybe Jason, you just drop a link, or we can just show it, is the cookbook. Like a lot of the stuff, like for example, the default path and the constructor, these are like recipes that we have already in the cookbook. So you can just kind of look at it for reference.
Yeah,
Even the
that's a great.
even the
point.
ephemeral database that you just showed is like it's already kind of documented in the cookbook, so it's all ready to use code snippets. You can just copy paste it into your Dagger module and adjust it for what you need, and just like off you go.
Yeah, there's like a matrix build in there, some multi-arch images, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the optimization secrets too, which is super awesome with HashiCorp and Vault and 1Password and environments and files. But yeah,
And also we basically use Python today, but like we have the code snippets for the other SDKs as well. So if you want to use Go or TypeScript, PHP.
I think the next call, I think someone's going to do PHP. I think that's going to be the.
Yeah, I'm interested in that one.
Yeah,
curious.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, yeah, thanks everyone who checked it out now and in the future. And yeah, someone asked earlier what IDE was that, and that was in Zed, and the autocomplete setup is I don't know. Are you using like the Zed autocomplete or?
Yeah, I haven't done anything. Okay. I fell in love with Zed when I opened a PHP project and it did the autocomplete and set up for me automatically. I was like, I'm more VS Code for me.
Nice. Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for everyone who watched it and who will watch it in the future. And we'll see you next time. I guess maybe in 2 weeks' time, depending on we have a hackathon or a hack night coming up in San Francisco. So if you're in the San Francisco area, come check that out. And we might be there at the hackathon in 2 weeks when we would be doing this stream, but we'll see. We'll have another one of these coming up. So yeah. All right. Thanks everyone. I'll see you guys next time.
See ya.
Thanks everyone. Bye.